All right, we're back live now.
Man, the dark side is really working against us tonight.
There's gremlins in the connection or something's going on. So what I did was kind of reconfigure the system a little bit, did a complete reboot. Again, everybody, I know I've said it like 10,000 times tonight. Bear with us. We're still dealing with some beta software. That's really cool, but we do know that we're kind of bleeding edge testing this to make it easy to bring in guests. So just bear with us.
Did you check outside to see if there was anyone with a jammer in your yard?
Yeah, no doubt.
Messing with. I mean, I know you have fans and all.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. We need to tell him to reconnect. So I'm sending a text to our next guest. Okay. All right. Let me get my camera kind of repositioned here. All right, so while we're doing this, it'll take a few minutes for people to see the live session again. Looks like we've got 4 or 5 more people on. So why don't you while we're waiting on our next guest to come in to the show, kind of rehash a little bit of what Dawn said real quickly, and then maybe tee up our next guest.
Yeah, so Dawn did great interview. Really loved what her. The most striking thing to me was her motivation, her why. You know, that's something that's always important to me, is what people's motivation are for doing things, and that's a lot of why we are doing this show. Is at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to: is what is your why, and.
Right.
Hers was out of something that, unfortunately, a lot of people, have endured through. I would say this COVID thing, and not being. I couldn't imagine not being able to see a family member, in a home or that situation. I totally get it. Totally.
All right, so we've got our next guest on. Let's go ahead and get him on while things seem to be pretty stable. What do you say about that?
I totally agree with that.
All right, so let me go to split screen here. I'm going to, let's see. Let me move. All right, let me get this done. So I need to add
me. Look at that, me on all 4.
Yeah, all right, I'm going to bring him into guest position 2. Okay, assign, or 1 actually. All right, so should have Senator Robert Mills in the upper right corner of the screen. Can everybody hear each other now?
I can hear you.
Oh, audio sounds great. What about you, Duke? You in?
I can hear you both loud and clear.
Okay, so hopefully, Senator Mills, just kind of bear with us and accept our apologies. We're having a few technical glitches, and hopefully through this interview, we started a new live session. It'll be a little more stable. That way everybody can hear, what all you've got to say and tell us about the goings on down in Baton Rouge.
Well, I've not heard my name in stable or Baton Rouge in stable in the same sentence in a long time. Thank you.
That's actually funny.
Well, Robert, hopefully you heard bits and pieces of Dawn Thomas, who was talking about the recall effort for John Bel Edwards, and you have anything you want to say on that subject or that effort, or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I was jumping up and down over here trying to get in on that, and I'm tickled pink that so many people around the state, particularly Dawn, is working so hard on this. There's no downside to putting pressure on this governor. We've learned that, in just a few months I've been here. He responds to pressure. He's not down here, doing what he's doing for the good of all mankind. He's working for himself and his people that put him into office. And that doesn't bode well for us. So we've got to fight on every level that we can. The politics of the trial lawyers and the crooked politicians that have hijacked this state for the last 25 years. It's going to be a long, long process. Let me jump back in time a little bit on what Don was saying. I've got a lot of personal experience just in the last few years with nursing homes and the limited visitation this last 9 months and all. My mother was in a wonderful nursing home, but like all of them, was just locked up tight. And from March until she died on September 19th, we did not see her in person. We weren't able to interact with her. And we just don't know the damage that caused. But it's well known that all across the country that the lockdown has caused substantial damage to the elderly, to the infirmed, to young people, to addicts. And this is just a horrible, horrible situation. And the cost is unknown to this date and time. But I watched my mother go from a fairly vibrant 96-year-old, to just, she died of old age, but you just don't know what would have happened if she'd had interaction with her family. And so we'll just not know.
Right. Yeah. And I couldn't imagine. I haven't been in that situation, but man, that would just have to be unbearable.
Well, the good news was she lived 96 great years.
Yeah. We can be thankful for that. Originally to get this interview with you, I had reached out to you because I had a little dialogue on the internet, and it was someone had made some criticism of a vote that you had, and you and I talked about it, and I kind of understood it, in which you were a little more hard on yourself than what I would have been about. You said it was a bad vote, and that you knew that at some point you'd cross that bridge and would have to, but you didn't think it would be that soon. And you talk about that a little bit, because I think it's important for voters to understand, that there might be a little bit more of a backstory to it.
Well, there's always, a lot of thought and consideration given to a vote like this. And so what happened we're talking about Senate Bill 29, I'm sure, that was a bill written by the president of the Senate, one of the most powerful people in the state of Louisiana. For background, when I was elected to Senate, for District 36, the senators got together and elected the president, and it was a complex process. The person I had hitched my wagon to did not garner quite enough votes to get it, and Sharon Hewitt, a great legislator that I was really confident with, negotiated a deal with ultimately the winner of that race. We made a compromise, and that happens in politics. When you can't win outright, you negotiate a settlement, and that's what we did in the case. And Paige Cortez is our leader for the next 4 years in the Senate. Paige wrote a bill that he put in the first minutes of this second special session that isn't a bill that I would have written, isn't a bill that I would have thought would have been the first thing we did when we got here. Caught us all off guard. But the president of the Senate is who assigns us our committee assignments, dictates a lot of what we do and don't do down here. And I've got 3+ years, hopefully, of productivity for Senate District 36 down here. And I can't throw it away at this point in time by getting into battle with the guy that controls what I do on a daily basis with the committees I serve on. When I first got here, I sat down with Paige and we talked about that. And he said, "What committees do you want?" I said, "Well, I ran on tort reform and judicial reform." And I said, "I really want to serve on Judiciary A, which has been a problem for 4+ years with my predecessor. And I said, I want to serve on insurance as well." And he rolled his eyes. He goes, "Oh yeah, everybody wants to be on Jude A. Everybody wants insurance." And yeah, but not everybody ran a race like I ran. And so there was consideration given, and I got those 2 committees. And possibly as some balancing for that, I also got education and retirement, which are 2 committees that you work hard on, and there's problems all the time. But being on Jude, being on insurance, I was able to contribute to the first successful session we've had in a long, long time. We made step one of a very important change with tort reform and with insurance reform. And we're on a path and a pattern that we just need to stay on for several more years while we make these changes, and step by step by step, fighting with the Democratic governor every step of the way, fighting with the trial lawyers every step of the way. We've got to stay in place and work as a team to get this done. So I'm a part of that team. And so when the president of the Senate writes his own bill and puts it out there, and you saw the vote was 36-0, we pushed it to the House. And I'm in touch with people in the House as well. And we've got some great House representative members from Northwest Louisiana that I stay in touch with. And I was counting on them doing the right thing, and they did. They made amendments to Senate Bill 29, sent it back to us, and it was in good shape. In fact, good enough that even Alan Seabaugh approved it and signed for it. So it was in good shape when it came from the House back to the Senate. And that's part of the process, the deliberation that we go through. And now the bill is going to go into a conference, and it'll be worked on over time. And very possibly it'll be the bill that goes eventually to the governor's desk. We've got other bills in the process. Nothing happens on the first day, and we're still talking about Senate Bill 29 that some people objected to, and it's turned into a good bill if we just keep it.
Yeah. And I don't know that a lot of the folks watching, they may not know exactly what the bill was. And what it changed was the language, to where it was that in a governor's order in an emergency situation, a vote of the House could overturn the governor's order, correct? And when it came to the Senate, it changed to where it would require a vote from the House and the Senate to overturn, in which, looking down the road in the short term, let's say if you wanted to overturn something that the governor did, having to only have the burden of one side, of the legislature to do it, yeah, that would be great for today. But down the road, that may be problematic because you can't always count on having a conservative House or a conservative Senate, correct?
It raised the bar. It surely did. Now, the President Cortez indicated that he felt like there was constitutional issues with one House being able to overturn an executive order. I don't know. I'm not a constitutional lawyer. I couldn't tell you, but it did raise the bar for that particular action, and that was my objection to it. But again, on the basis that I was going to have to let the House help us out on here, I dumped it right in their lap, and they brought it back to us in pretty good shape.
All right, so let me interject for a second, Duke, and just change a tangent. So Dawn had a question, Senator Mills, if you know the status of HCR 9. Are you familiar with that one?
Yeah, the House Concurrent Resolution 9 came over to the Senate from the House, and there was an amendment made to it today that changed, I think, the effective time for the interruption of the executive order from 30 days to 60 days. And it then got put back on the calendar, and I can't tell you that it'll come up tomorrow or the next day, but it should come back up for a vote in the Senate in the next period of time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Wow, that's good. And I really appreciate you coming on, Robert. A lot of politicians wouldn't, come on and just like there, being able to have interactions, and going with the public, going back to the vote on that bill, if you were to object to that bill, you would have been the only man, right?
There was no votes against it. Again, you've just got to understand the power of the presidency in this case, and the faith that we have we've got a really good bunch of people in the House of Representatives on the conservative side, and you've got to understand our faith in them and their faith in us, that we're going to work together.
Yeah, and Rex, it looked like you wanted to jump in. Go ahead.
Oh, well, of course, you know which direction I might be headed in the conversation. So if you've got some more questions, and I can wait just a few minutes. I'm trying to play with camera settings and all that. So
Yeah, yeah. So, Robert, you had told me that you had some bills that you were bringing, and we were going to talk about those a little bit because it sounded pretty good what you were telling me when we talked, and I was hoping you'd share that with us.
Well, yeah, be glad to. In fact, again, go back to what Don was speaking of earlier. The bill I had on the floor today that ended up passing 36-0 is called our Senate Bill 12. It was our pastor access bill. It was a short title. There's a situation. I wrote this bill in July of this year, in fact, and we just got, because of the being out of session at that point in time and now coming back in, I was able to go ahead and run this bill. This bill was written because of the situation that occurred in Maryland first, where pastors were not allowed access to parishioners or members of their congregation in Maryland. And an individual sued the hospital, and the federal government actually intervened and joined in the suit with the individuals against the hospital system, University of Maryland Hospital. And I wanted to check into that myself. So I called a number of pastors that I knew, and I asked them, I said, do you have access to the hospitals during this COVID environment? They said, we don't think so. We've not been invited. We've not been asked, but we don't think we do. And so I wanted to clarify, and I actually wrote a bill, went through the process. There was deliberation on it. But today, in fact, we ended up having a final vote in the Senate. And 36-0, we passed a bill that requires hospitals, nursing homes, healthcare facilities to allow pastors in to see their members, their parishioners, in a protected situation with all the PPE, with all of the requirements involved, a lot of protocols, but you can't deny a pastor access to their parishioner, and it was a religious freedom type of bill that I wrote, and it was well received after some considerations made to the hospitals, but it was well received. Passed 36-0 just today, and it goes to the House now, and I feel like it'll run through the House fairly easily as well. So that bill was just today. We've got several things that were in process, and a bill that is on board to be heard in the Senate Health and Welfare Committee, Senate Bill 48. Robert Mills is the author again. This suspends certain provisions relative to the definition of public health emergency for the purposes of Louisiana Health Emergency Powers Act. This was a situation that we looked at and recognized that the current governor has made these executive orders, which are only allowed under our Constitution for 30 days. He's allowed to renew those, and he's turned out to where he's just effectively put these burdens on our freedom into with the force of law, effectively to be law by just renewing these 30-day emergency orders. And so I can understand there's still issues left over from Hurricane Katrina years ago, from hurricanes, in years past. Federal money takes years to get resolved in some of these cases. And so there's reasons to leave some emergency orders out there, but the emergency order is a two-step process. You declare the emergency, that's allowed for a 30-day period of time. And if the governor feels it's required and responsible, he puts restrictions on personal freedoms in addition to that emergency order. I contend that you can strip those restrictions on personal freedoms, leave the order in place. And that was really the goal with this bill, was to say you cannot renew these orders every 30 days without legislative authority, because in Louisiana, only the legislature can make law. Absolutely, positively, only the legislature can make law. The governor cannot make a law. But when he takes an executive order and just renews, he's effectively made a law. And I say that's unconstitutional, and he can't do that. And we need to stop that.
Well, Robert, let me ask you a question about that too. So, yeah, I agree with you 100%. The legislature is the one that makes the laws, but how exactly is the legislature, or have y'all thought about how you're actually going to stop him from doing it? Because the legislature has to pass the law, but the governor also has to sign it, or y'all have got to have a veto-proof majority for that to actually do something about it. I mean, has anybody discussed what the plan is on how to actually stop him from doing this?
There's more than one plan. There's quite a number of plans out there, Rex, and that's the whole process that people probably don't realize is how many bills are actually circulating right now. That and I'd say there's at least 6 or 7 good bills that are out there with some provisions for the legislature to, in the weakest sense, have a seat at the table when those decisions are being made. In the strongest case, being the source of authority for those things to happen. And there's every possible combination of things in between. All that's in process right now, and it's going to be an interesting next probably 10 days down here as all this figures out and we start kind of deciding which ones of these have the legs that can actually get enough votes to be passed. And then you know, it's not the driving consideration, but you've got to wonder which one might the governor sign, and that's just a guessing game. You're right. If the governor doesn't sign it, you've wasted some time. Right. But we're not here to make the governor happy. We're here to make our constituents and ourselves happy. But if you can't get a governor's signature on it and you don't have enough votes to override a veto, come back with nothing. Right. So there's a gamble.
Well, and I just say from my end, Duke, let me interject for a second that, you know, any help or support that you and the rest of our legislators need, let us know, and we'll be glad to, you know, use our little bit of reach on social media and in discussions with other people to help out with those efforts, because something's got to be done about it.
Well, I think something is going to be done. I feel, you know, from what I know, and I can't say everything I know, but what I know is that I see some things that we feel like the governor would accept. You know, they don't light my fire necessarily, and you never know exactly what the governor would accept. But we had experience with him this summer, and we ended up getting a reasonable amount of business done. And so, you know, we're learning how to conduct business with the governor, and he's learning how to conduct business with us. And we each want as much as we can get.
Robert, I'm going to take a walk on the wild side here. I heard a rumor about some legislators potentially having to find a new home at the end of some days. They found all this stuff. Is that accurate?
There's power in positions down here. I can tell you that if you don't get along with some of the powers that be, it can be very uncomfortable. And someday I want you to visit with Alan Seabaugh, some of the other legislators that have run into the buzzsaw down here before, and let them tell you exactly how uncomfortable that can be sometimes to be able to stick up for what you believe in. It can cost you pretty dearly.
Well, I got a quick question for you. So as a first-time legislator and senator, as far as I can remember, what's the experience like, you know, as a first time going down there to be, let's just say, in and amongst all of that?
Rex, thanks. I've been asked a bunch of times, what about this surprised you the most, or what did it meet your expectations? I had no expectations. I was in business in an executive position, working fairly hard up until December 31st of 2018. January 1st, 2019, I was a full-time candidate for Senate District 36 and engaged in that, you know, completely. I never worried about, what if I win? I worried that, I might lose. So I kept running as hard as I could. And so I had no particular interest in even worrying about what I was going to see at the other end of the rainbow. And so, November 16th, the race is final. By then, you take a breath, and then it's Christmas, and you take a breath, and then it's New Year's, you take a breath, and you're getting inaugurated, you take a breath, and you've got to find an office in Minden, you got to find an office in Bossier City, you got to hire some legislative aid. There was no time to worry about what I was going to find when I finally got here. And so I came down, for the March session, and I was blessed, literally blessed. I had a gorgeous office in the Capitol with a very competent attorney sitting next door to me, and I just had all the help, and I was just extremely impressed with how hard the people around me worked. 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., just whatever it took. The staff is remarkable down here. The quality of help, there's just everything you need to get it done, including some people that'll help you kind of coach you away. And my friend Sharon Hewitt, that is actually in the department right next door to me here in the Pentagon, has always been a great help to the Republican delegation here. And I've just had a lot of support for somebody. And Duke called me a politician a while ago. I take exception to that. I'm just a business guy that got caught running for a public office and got elected. So I really don't know much about politics, and that's okay. I think that's probably an asset. I can ask stupid questions and just explain it away. So my ignorance allows me to do some things I couldn't do otherwise.
Good answer. Very interesting.
Yeah, and we appreciate your comments and explaining your bills and exactly what was going on, and obviously with Bossier Watch, what we're trying to do is provide a little bit more information to the folks the Bossier area, like Rex said, and be more informative about what is happening. Granted, there's a lot that happens in Baton Rouge. Happens affects our community up here. Rex,
I appreciate you guys for doing that. It's a true politician probably wouldn't come on this show and really divulge very much, because there's always those undercurrents and the things they're trying to do politically. I'm not worried about re-election. I'm not running for re-election. I don't have to worry about those repercussions. I'll be fine if I'm for it done. That's just perfectly fine if that's what the people want. If they want me to stay, I guess I'll be able to stay. I'm 67 years old today. I don't want to do this forever, but I may be a masochist, but I kind of enjoyed this first session. We didn't have all the hoopla involved like you usually do. The restaurants were closed. I got to go to bed at 9 o'clock like I like doing, and I got up early and I went to work like I like doing. So it really fit me just fine. I don't know what it's going to be like next year. We'll see.
All right.
Well, I think you just started the next Senate race.
Yeah, if I heard you correctly, you're not running for re-election. Is that a direct quote?
Well, no, I'm not running for re-election today. I'll guarantee you that. I'm worrying about tomorrow. I've got my boat loaded for tomorrow, so it doesn't affect being elected to this office. Doesn't change how I think. It doesn't change anything about what I do. Worried about coming back, it isn't even in my mind at all at this point in time. I can't tell you that I'll have the energy or the interest at this point in time.
Well, I've got to segue into this, Duke, and Robert, because if I don't, I will get tarred and feathered by a few hundred people. So this isn't exactly in your wheelhouse yet, as far as being a senator, but are you aware of, and I'm going to put it nicely, some of the shenanigans that have been going on at the Cypress-Black Bayou District Board?
I hear I hear some things about that. I've successfully avoided it because I can't do much about it. I'm one of the taxpayers that pays for the district, and I'm very concerned about the amount of consternation. And I've got a lot of respect for the people that have been, fighting the system. I met very early on with Mr. Perry, and I told him directly, I see some problems with how this thing is set up. For him individually, he may be the right guy for the job. He may be worth this much money, but the next guy isn't necessarily capable of doing this work on heavy machinery. I just think we've got a job that's morphed into something that was never intended to be. It is my personal opinion. I'm not saying this as a senator. I'm saying this as a taxpayer. And so I can see why there's a lot of concern and consternation. And I'm sick to see this much money being spent fighting amongst ourselves. That needs to end.
Well, and that's a fair answer. So let me circle it around to something that might be in your purview coming up as a senator. I don't know if you're aware, but I believe it was last session, State Representative Horton, Dodie Horton, had a bill that she was trying to work or get pushed through and all that, basically concerning how the commissioners are elected. Right now, they're all appointed bureaucrats. They're not elected, so they're really not accountable to the citizens, except through the police jury, the town of Benton, the city of Bossier. I think the levy board and the school board all appoint one. But she's supposed to be trying to get some more legislation pushed forward as soon as she can. I guess it would be this spring, to help address some of those concerns the way that board is structured. Can we maybe count on you, or do you have any thoughts on maybe trying to help her from the Senate side, or have you even discussed any of this with her yet, or know where that stands?
I hadn't talked with Dodie about it in any great depth. I did talk to some of the board members, and each one of them told me we put up a lot of money every year for Black Bayou, Cypress, and that's why we have a seat on the board, is because of the amount of money we contribute. And that's a fair argument. If you pay to play, you might need to be on the board. But again, who represents the taxpayer? That's a fair question. I think the taxpayer probably needs to have some input in what goes on out there. And as big as the board is, and as much money as they put up for it, there's still not the common man's not involved in that board very well.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, we appreciate you coming on and talking about all the subjects. And we threw you one little curveball. It wasn't a hard one. It was a simple one. But
well, like I say, you can't hurt my feelings, and if I'm going to get in trouble because I like talking to people, so I expect to get some throwback on some of this, and that's fine too. I mean, I'll tell you what I think. It doesn't cost you a nickel, so I'll throw it out there and just I'm brutally honest sometimes.
I'll get to your credit. You told me, you said, look, if there's any criticism, by all means, I want to know. Hit me up about it. I want to address it.
I'd rather know than not know.
And I called you, and you jumped right into it. And I appreciate your honesty on that. You told me straight out of the gate. You know what? It what I didn't like it, but it was the way it was.
Yeah. No, it's like I say, it's not having really any experience, or again, go back to what Rex says, not having any premonition of what I was going to be, faced with. That was, even my pastor, the week after that vote, his sermon, I felt like he was talking to me. I really hated it. There are situations in politics and management and business where you have to compromise, and I might get better at it. I don't know. I probably won't, but I really didn't like being put in that spot, and I've said that out loud down here to a lot of people.
Good deal. Well, again, we appreciate it, and we'll have you back on here down the road as we progress through this life that we're living, and trying to make our community better.
Well, I feel sure we're going to survive it. It's going to take longer than we want, and it's very uncomfortable to a lot of people. And I've been interested. You guys are probably doing the same thing, reading the Great Barrington Declaration. You guys need to look into this if you haven't. And it's there's people all over the country starting to realize that this lockdown has been disastrous from a mental health standpoint, from a physical health standpoint, and we know from an economic standpoint the damage to the commercial real estate markets and to the small businesses is just unthinkable. Unthinkable.
Well, I'd like to say from my end, I really appreciate you, taking the time to come on and do the interview and all that and giving us straightforward answers. So I absolutely have to give you credit for that. And any help we can be to try to get the word out on, bills that come up or different things, just let us know.
Well, I appreciate it. Like I say, it's not being a politician. I'm not all that real good at getting the word out on some of this stuff. I've got a great legislative assistant working for us in the Minden office, but she's purely a service-oriented employee that handles requests from the left, the right, in betweens, the small cities, the bigger cities. My office in Bossier City, is my personal office as well as a satellite District 36 office. So I've got a little bit of a hybrid operation there, and I can do politics in the Bossier office. I don't do any politics in the Minden office. That's strictly for the people. So I'm just going to do this job differently than I feel like it's been done in a long time. And that's just what I intended, what I said I was going to do. And I've made 45 years career doing what I said I was going to do. I'm just going to keep doing that.
Perfect.
Great. Well, we appreciate it, Senator.
All right. Well, Senator, we're going to kick you off of here and say goodbye.
No.
Just stay on for a little bit and we'll kind of wrap this up. Thank you, Senator.
Okay, guys. Goodbye.
All right.
Goodbye. Thank you.
All right. Let's see here. Let me see if I can switch us back around. Hey, it worked. Okay, so that was a little more stable than the first interview.
Yeah, it was. I wonder what that glitch was.
Well, I'm not really sure. Ecamm, the software that we're using, had pushed down a relatively new update earlier, and I don't know, maybe it's related to that. I'm going to give them some feedback on it. And apologies to Dawn. I think from the live end of people watching, it was better than what we were experiencing. But absolutely, like you said, we'll get them back on and try to have a little more stable connection as the recall efforts proceed on. So,
yeah, I thought that was interesting that both Dawn and Senator Mills had a similar experience, with family members. That was interesting. I didn't know that. I can't say how much that man, how painful that has to be.
Well, yeah, I've been blessed so far that I haven't experienced any of that directly. I have had a couple of my customers that have been through it, and one of them passed away from COVID-related complications and all that. But I hadn't had anything hit home that close yet, and yeah, I just can't imagine going through that process. And yeah, I mean, my opinion's pretty clear that we need to open it back up, period, because it's killing the economy. Not even letting pastors into the hospitals is just absolutely ridiculous. And I won't even get in on the scientific side of it, but yeah, we need to get the country rolling again, and it's just going to have to play out as it's going to play out, in my opinion.
Yeah, without a doubt. Now, I am going to take issue and say one thing, and with what Senator Mills said, that he's not a politician. Someone told me a long time ago, if you ever sign your name on the dotted line to run for an office, you're a politician, and you can't change that.
Well, yeah, by definition, he ran a political race, therefore he is a politician. But, I'll say this, because look, it's no secret, I did not support Robert Mills for state senator and all that, mainly over Second Amendment issues. I won't get into all that, but I'll give him credit. He absolutely took the opportunity to come on the show and discuss some of the things going on down there in Baton Rouge. And based on this interview, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that, he's kind of a new guy down there and not going to take the inside track, so to speak, that we see a lot of politicians do. So, we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as you know, I was non-denominational in that race. I had my reasons for being there, and either way, whoever is in that seat, as long as they are doing the best that they can do for Bossier, that's what I care about, is our community, and that we're prosperous here. And I like where he's going with things so far, and coming on. Not afraid to take the hard questions. He really didn't kind of know where we stood, and
Right. Yeah, he
again,
had no idea.
it.
Well, and let's be clear to most of the audience, he really didn't know. I mean, we had some general ideas, and Duke had some general notes about the topics we were going to talk about, but he honestly had no idea what curveballs we could have thrown at him. And so, like I said, I didn't support him in the Senate race, but I give him credit for coming on the show and giving honest answers.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would suspect we're going to kind of talk about the future a little bit, maybe, huh? And then wrap this thing up.
Yeah, let's discuss that for a couple of minutes, and yeah, let's go ahead and wrap it up. So, have you got any teasers for things coming up?
I'm dying to get off into Republican politics. I mean, I'm just.
Are we going to
I'm
talk
dying.
about the PEC?
There is so much there to talk about. I mean, but I know there's other issues that and people would be like, well, why would the PEC, or what is the PEC? I mean, a lot of people probably saying, what's the PEC? The Republican Executive Committee.
A lot of people may not be aware that there is, of course, there's the Republican PEC, and let's face it, Bossier Parish is a very red parish, one of the reddest, if not the reddest parish in the state. There is a Democratic PEC. So, if you happen to be one of the few Democrats out there, and we hope some of y'all are watching the show too, there is a Democratic PEC. You can join that, or run for the office or run for the position. So most people don't realize both parties are represented.
And interestingly, when we get off into the topic, when we start talking about the Republican politics, or it's actually the issue and the subject matter is going to be applicable to the Democrat Party and the Democrat PEC as well, because some of the same boat that we find ourselves in today is the same boat that they're in, and they will find themselves down the road.
Yeah, and
that might be a little bit of a teaser.
And some other topics, we've got the election coming up. I'll be glad to share from my, 3.5 or so years on the Bossier Parish Board of Election Supervisors. I'm going to try to share a little bit of insight into that and how that process works. Of course, I'm staying on the Cypress District Board. Trust me, I'm just scraping the surface of some interesting things going on there. So we've got plenty more to talk about with that, and maybe some things coming up with the police jury, and maybe even some things coming up with the State Central Committee race that's coming up, or election that's coming up. There's all kinds of things out there.
And it's interesting, Rex, that, you talk about that, the police jury, the Cypress-Black Bayou Recreation, the Republican Party of Bossier Parish. I mean, it's interesting. There's connections to each one of those subjects.
It's almost like a good old boy network, isn't it?
A network? No, not a network.
Surely they don't sit down and, have dinners and go out for drinks and discuss all this and actually plan this out, or are we just conspiracy theorists?
I can see it now. Bossier Watch, the Q of Bossier.
Oh no, here we go.
But the difference is that we're going to have documents.
Exactly. Documents to back up everything we say.
And proof.
And proof. Including maybe some sound bites. That would be interesting too.
Sound bites. That would be interesting as well too, wouldn't it? Yeah.
It would.
I'm liking the way you're talking.
All right. Well, I'm fixing to get out of here and go get me a bite of supper. And I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up. We've you know, the first interview, and again, apologies to Dawn and the Recall John Bel Edwards effort and all that. We will have y'all back on and try to have a little smoother session. But we did manage to kind of muddle our way through it, and then I think it went pretty smooth with Robert. So we've got some more good things coming.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'll say my customary go Tigers.
They got a long way to go this year.
Boy, do they. Whew.
All right. We'll see y'all
All
later,
right,
folks.
good night.
Like and follow, tag, share it out, do all that kind of good stuff. Let your friends, let your neighbors know, and we're out of here.